This Flutter app has a grid of images through which we can scroll. Let me show you how to build a grid just like this one using the GridView Builder in Flutter. We start off with a blank app. As you can see, there's nothing in our app but a blank scaffold. The first thing we'll do is create a list of the images we want to use in our grid. And here I have added an images folder where I've put all the images we're going to use for our demo. Also, in the pubspec.yml file, I have added this assets line that points to the images folder. So now I'll create the list of images here and I'll call it posts. So in here, I am going to pass the references to these images as strings. Now that we have our list of posts, the next thing we'll do is define the layout of our app. So we'll create a column and inside we'll put in the head section of our app as well as the grid. At the top, we'll start with a row which will have the title of our account as well as a menu icon at the far end. I have put this text inside a center so that it can be centered, of course, but I have put the center inside an expanded so that this widget can take up all the space except the space needed by the icon, which is what we're going to put in next. To learn more about the expanded widget, check out my expanded video. The next child in our column will be a sized box for spacing. And the next child will be a row with 4 more icons. For now, let's put in the const keyword here, but we will remove it at a later stage when we introduce the grid view. Let's save and rebuild this app and see what it looks like. Save, rebuild. So here is our app. Let's quickly make a change here and add the main axis alignment property to this row and set that to space evenly and rebuild. So there is the head section of our app. The next thing will now be to add our grid view. We'll add our grid view below this row, but first a sized box for spacing. We'll wrap our grid view inside an expanded widget. And the reason for doing this is our grid view will be inside a column. And you know the grid view is always free to take up as much vertical space as it needs. But since it's inside a column, that lack of restraint will cause build errors. And so to deal with that, we use the expanded widget. So it's time to get rid of this const keyword here. The GridView Builder requires 2 properties. The first is item builder, and this takes a function which takes the build context as well as an index. And we want this function to return an image. And so we're going to pass in these strings here as the path to the images in the grid view. The next thing we need to define inside the GridView Builder is the GridDelegate. And this determines how the widgets inside the grid or the tiles inside the grid are arranged. So we'll go with a GridDelegate where the number of tiles horizontally is fixed. And we're going to set this grid to have 3 tiles for every row. The last property I want us to define for now, which is however not required, is item count. And we should set this to the length of our posts list so that it knows how many tiles to put in the grid. Let's save and rebuild this app. And there is our app. We have our grid with images. You can see that some tiles have spaces, and this is happening in the tiles whose images are not square in shape. So we'll deal with that in a moment. But for now, I want to show you the other option when it comes to the GridDelegate. Are you enjoying this video so far? Consider liking it and subscribing to this channel. Let's go on. So here we have a fixed number of tiles horizontally. So even if we expand our window, the grid adjusts to make sure that we have 3 tiles for every row at all times. So the other option is a GridDelegate that limits the horizontal size of every tile. And that is the sliver GridDelegate with max cross-axis extent. And this GridDelegate option takes a max cross-axis extent as an input. And this takes a double. And this double is the maximum pixel size that a tile is allowed to have horizontally. So let's set this to a small number like 50 and then reload and see what our app looks like. And here is our app. As you can see, our tiles are much smaller now. And if we increase the horizontal extent of our window, the tiles become bigger up to a certain point, after which the number of tiles horizontally increases, but their size reduces. So the first priority is to make sure that all the horizontal space has been taken up, and the grid will increase the size of the tiles to make sure that happens. But once the tiles get to the maximum defined width, which we have defined in the code, then it increases the number of tiles but reduces the size of the tiles. So those are the two GridDelegate options that we have. Other than that behavior, these two are very similar. And so we'll go back to our previous option, which was the option with the fixed number of tiles horizontally. And with that option, we'll explore the other properties of the GridDelegate. Let's rebuild our app, and we are back to our original setting. So I want us to deal with this issue of the spaces, and we will do that inside this image. And we'll add a property known as fit. And we'll set this to boxFit.cover. And that will take care of our issue. So reload. And now our images fill up the space allocated to them in the tiles. Now I want us to change these tiles and make them taller. And for that, we're going to use the childAspectRatio property of the GridDelegate. Let me minimize this so that we can see the code nicely. And this property takes a double. So if we put in a figure that is smaller than 1, we are going to end up with portrait tiles. If we put in a figure that's greater than 1, we're going to end up with landscape tiles. Since we're going for portrait, let's put in 0.7 and rebuild our app. And now we have this nice portrait tiles. The next property we'll change is the spacing along the cross axis. This also takes a double. Let's set it to 2 pixels and reload our app. And now we have this nice spacing between our tiles. Finally, I want us to change the mainAxisSpacing. Set it to 2 pixels as well and reload. And now we also have spacing along the main axis. And this is how you build a grid in Flutter using the GridView Builder. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll help you out. If you have any other comments, drop them in the comment section as well. And if you have found value in this video, be sure to like it and subscribe to this channel with the notifications turned on so that you get notified each time I upload a new video. This is the FlutterCoach, and I will see you in the next one.